Hello DIYers, this is Maria Hall, owner of Deck the Halls DIY Studio, and today we are going to be working on your Pumpkulent, so the succulents with the pumpkin display kit. So we're going to be putting this project together. Now this project and this kit is a little bit challenging, so I really will go through each step with you because there are so many pieces to it. So if you ordered your kit from Deck the Halls DIY Studio, your kit would come with all of these cutouts, the variety of paints that's included, sponges, little brushes, and glue. What I would recommend having on hand when you do this project is some painter's tape. Okay, masking tape works okay as well. I mean, that works well. Just, we are going to do some painting on these letters and then we're going to tape over it. So that's why I recommend the painter's tape. But you might have another way that you like doing this part. So I'll show you the way we do it, but there's other ways to do it, of course, as well. Okay, so like I said earlier, this project has so many pieces. So what I did is I laid out my pieces. It's a big puzzle. I laid out all my pieces and then I went around with a pencil and I put letters on it. Maybe you can see that. I have little letters on it telling me which color I want each piece. Now this is where your creativity can kick into full gear. You can decide what you want each piece painted. Now we only give you limited colors, but you could also use the white or the blacks to start mixing colors to make different shades if you want more than what was provided. You can also use any paint you have at home. House paint or acrylic paint works well on these as well. So I would encourage you to lay this out like we have here. Okay, again, I'll show you one more time. Lay it out, mark your colors so that once you get painting, you can kind of paint the same items with the same color at one time because you're not gonna wanna put it back together until your pieces are dry. Okay, so let's go through how to paint and get started with that. We will start first, I'm gonna start with our word. So your word, as you noticed, fits right into the spot. Okay, it's the same size cutout, and that is because when we go to apply it, it's gonna be easier to apply if we keep it all the same size, okay? Because that will help us with our guidelines. Now, I am going to paint this, the word thankful. I'm going to paint that black because I am going to paint this piece white, okay? So to paint this black, it's taped on the back. You're going to paint the front. Grab one of your sponges. Grab whatever color paint you're going to paint it, okay? Put a little bit of paint on your sponge. This is too much paint. That is a glob of paint, too much paint. Wipe some off. Dab a little bit on the side, maybe on a napkin or on paper. And then you're just simply going to dab. Okay, we're just dabbing the paint. Now get it to a consistent or a shade that you like. So you might need to do a couple coats, but do them lightly because you don't want to push excess paint in between the letter and where it's cut out, okay? Because we're gonna let all of these pieces dry and then apply. So if you have a lot of paint, the paint might stick in there and then it will be harder for us to get our letters out. Okay, so less is more in this situation. So you're just gonna dab your letters. I get paint on there, and then this is about how much, like tissue paper thickness of paint. That's how much you should be putting on. You can always go back and make another layer of paint, but lightly, because like I said, you do not want globs of paint going in the letters where we're gonna try to pop them out later on. Okay, so once you have this painted to your liking, okay, you can set this aside. Okay, and maybe it dries and you go back and do another coat before we put it all together, and that's okay too. What I'm going to do is I'm gonna take each piece off as I go, and I'm going to paint. I did wanna draw your attention to some of those really small pieces. If you're using a larger piece, if you're painting a larger piece, like I'm going to paint this larger piece brown, I can simply, again, I'm not gonna get a lot of paint on mine. I'm wiping off my paint. I'll dab it a little bit. I can simply hold it and dab the paint on, okay? There's a lot of paint on this one, dab it off. Okay, I can simply hold this one and dab it because it is a larger piece. I can find a spot where my fingernail can hold it. Okay, and again, you're doing this until you're happy with it, but we don't need a lot of paint, and that's why we didn't give you cups full of paint, because you don't need a lot of paint. So this one is brown, and this one was easy for me to paint holding on to. But I will, I have a brown piece that's right here because it's part of this leaf section right here. So I will pull this brown one and this brown one because it goes over there. Now, these are tiny pieces, and you can certainly hold them in your hand and dab. That's okay. Here's where your tape comes in. Lay your tape down. Put your pieces on, your smaller pieces on the tape, and now look at. Put your fingers down, get a little bit of paint on your sponge, and dab. And those pieces, they will stay stuck down. Awesome, right? You can do this with all of your pieces if you want, or just the small pieces, but you are able to paint your pieces, and then I just leave them on the tape until I'm ready to apply. So any of your small pieces, I would recommend having masking tape or painter's tape for those little small pieces. We did include a small brush, okay, because you'll see like right here I need to do a little bit of brown, and that's on the background board. This I wanted to do green, and I'm gonna do that on the background board. So when I'm doing some painting along my score lines, I'm gonna carefully take this apart so I kind of keep it together, even though I do have every piece marked. And that's the other thing. Make sure you double check where you're marking, and because I have it all laid out, I know where on my backgrounds I need to do some painting. Okay, so I'm just gonna gently move these pieces off because I'll show you painting this larger piece. Okay, so painting the larger piece, you're gonna still use your white sponges, and I'm gonna paint my pumpkin orange. So I'm just gonna get some paint on here. And this is okay if I put a glob of paint on there, because now I'm just gonna spread my paint with my sponge. Now, along the score line, so this score line is like your guide. You're gonna try to paint in the lines, okay? I put extra paint on my sponge, and actually I'm gonna go this way, it'll be easier for me. And the reason why is so that it glides along the edge easier. If it's dry, not a lot of paint, it won't glide as easily or flow as easily along the line. It's easier for me to do it without talking. There we go. So I just kind of slid along the score line, and then I'll get some more paint on, and I will slide along the score line. Okay, I'm picking up a little bit more paint so I can slide along the score line. And then I would recommend repeating this for your score line up top, where you're gonna paint this. This whole piece right here for me is gonna be painted white. Right here was a peekaboo spot. That's gonna be painted green. And right here, I'm gonna paint this brown because it's part of the leaf over here that I'm gonna connect. Okay, so you're gonna wanna paint this. Now, I would paint the orange up a little bit further because remember, your pieces are gonna come over, but you want your whole pumpkin, whatever color your pumpkin is. And maybe your pumpkin is a softer orange, or maybe you're doing a teal pumpkin, or maybe you're gonna mute down or tone down the light green that we've included and make one of those pretty Cinderella tealish greenish pumpkins. I don't know. Maybe you'll do a white pumpkin. Ooh, that would be gorgeous. Ooh, that's gonna be really pretty. So if you do a white pumpkin or a green pumpkin or a teal pumpkin, share it. Oh my goodness, I would love to see that. That would be awesome. Okay, so what I want you to do is continue painting each of your pieces using the tape, using your sponges, using your little brush. One more thing, you'll notice that your edges are burned and there's kind of like a burn mark. That's because these are laser cut, okay? So we get these cut, we cut them on the laser, and you don't have to paint these edges, which makes it so nice because it's a nice clean edge. So when I'm painting towards the edge of my cutouts, I just pull it off. You can kind of see how I'm just pulling it off the edges, okay? Don't be afraid to add some texture with this. So once your pumpkin is painted and dry, if you want to take some of the brown, maybe a light brown, and kind of put some of those lines on the pumpkin, that would be fun too. So let your creativity flow. Let's paint all of our pieces, and then we'll come back to assemble, okay? And we'll go through the assembly part. We will also talk about the base and how to put that together after we get this stuff painted. All right, once you have your pieces painted, we're gonna come back and assemble your base. So the base is gonna hold up your Pumpkulent display cutout decor item. You'll have 2 larger pieces and 2 smaller pieces. The 2 smaller pieces have a slot in them, in both of them, okay? And then in the 2 larger pieces, one has a slot and one does not. So the one that does not have a slot is your very bottom piece, and then this piece will be glued onto the top. So you'll want to take your glue and you will just glue around the outside. You do not want to get glue in the slot, okay? Because that's where your base is going to come through, or your Pumpkulent's going to come through. Now, I'm pushing on my edges to make sure everything is in line, okay? Because I want to make sure this is all tight. But I also want it even and equal on each side. And it should fit because they're cut the same size. Now, these 2 pieces, you're going to take and you're going to glue them together. Again, only putting paint on the outside. And don't go near the slot. You do not want, glue. You do not want glue in the slot. And then when you put these on, okay, I'm pushing on either side and I'm pushing on the ends. I want that all to be together and equal. This slot should be clean and clear all the way through. You're going to then put these pieces together. Now, we just added glue to them, so you'll want to be a little bit careful with this next step, okay? So what I like to do is, yes, I eyeball it. I see that it works, but what I also like to do is take my pumpkin and fit it in the slot, okay, in the double slot. Notice how I have them separated, okay? So it's gonna fit in here. You see how this bottom piece came out? Here's my double smaller slot, and then it's gonna go in there. So what I like to do, and if you feel good just eyeballing it, you can. I'm just gonna add glue on either side of the slot, okay? And then I am going to take this bottom piece and put my base in it, okay? And it will fit. And then I will just make sure that everything is in line, and I will take it out. Now, this needs to sit. It needs to set. The glue we included is a quick dry, so just put this aside for right now. We will paint it another color. You have all your other pieces painted and ready to go. I wanted to show you a couple of things. When I was talking earlier about the shading, I have my pumpkin done. maybe I want to come back and put some lines in. So what I'm doing right now is I'm just pulling a little bit of paint onto my sponge, and then I'm going to wipe it off. Okay, because I don't want my lines super noticeable or super defined. So if I don't want defined lines, but I want something there, I'm gonna try to get as little paint on there as possible. And then you can kind of just smooth it out. And I take my hand, and sometimes I do that. Okay? And now, remember you guys, this is paint. So if you put it on there and you're like, ugh, I do not like that, that's okay. Paint over it. Okay? So just, I'm adding a little bit of lines where my pumpkin would have had some lines maybe. You can totally leave it too. Now, I think this is a little dark and he actually might be covered up, but I'm just gonna put a little paint on my finger to blend it a little bit. There you go. So I'm okay with that. I think that's gonna look nice because I'm gonna put my flowers and my succulent pieces on top. The other spot you could do a little shading if you want a more rustic look up here is doing that same idea to your sign. Now my black has paint on it, so I'm just gonna dab some of it off. And if I wanna just do a little bit of a rustic-y look, I'm just going over very smoothly. Nothing too crazy. And also, this depends what color you painted your words. So you might not want a lot of paint on there. And like, let's say, I think that's a little bit dark for the white right there. So I'm gonna just do a little bit of white over, because I did do black words, remember. So I like that. That's a little bit of a more rustic look. If you wanted to take a pencil and a ruler and draw lines to make a shiplap sign, that would be super cool too. So there's just some ideas. Play with the paint a little bit. Remember, it is paint, so if you don't like it, paint over it, okay? Now, this is set. I want you to go back to your base, okay? You're gonna paint the base whatever color you want. I did a black insert, so I'm gonna paint this black. So all you'll need to do is take the paint and you're gonna paint this, okay? Now, do not get the paint in the slot. That will interfere with how your cutout fits in the slot. So don't put paint in the slot. So take care of painting all of this, and once all of your pieces, again, are painted to your liking and dry, we'll come back and we will assemble. All right. Now, all your pieces are dry and you're ready to put this together. So what worked best for me when I first laid this out was to take all my pieces, pull them together, and lay out where I think they go and where they match. Now, if you go back to the beginning of the video, you can see the finished project, or if you go to our Facebook page or Instagram page, you should see our finished project, so that would help you as well. So take each of your pieces, bring them back. I will start by laying out the leaves and kind of working those around. We're not gluing anything down. We're just putting everything in its place. Okay, so don't glue anything down. Just start putting all of your pieces together, and you'll have to kind of turn them because this is where the puzzle part comes in, okay? So we'll put them together and find how they fit, and then we'll come together and we'll talk about how to glue. All right, you guys, this is a tricky one, and I know that. So that took a little bit of time to put your pieces together. That's totally okay. So every piece goes in a certain way and it sits a certain way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my painter's tape and I'm going to tape my pieces because I have them where I want them. Okay, I'm going to tape them, and I'm going to use a good amount of painter's tape because like just now I just shifted it. So I'm going to push everything back to where I want it. Okay, and I'm going to tape so that I can flip this over, put glue on, and flip it back over to adhere. Now, if you want to do it piece by piece, and we might have to do some pieces piece by piece, that's okay too. You certainly can do that. Okay, but right here, it took a little bit, and I know that, to get this one together. That's why this project is a little bit challenging, but it will take you a little bit to create, but it will be so worth it, you guys. It's so cute. So I'm gonna carefully take, and I'm actually gonna use my backer board here, and flip it down, okay? And then take your glue, and because all of these pieces are intersecting and they're all together the way they can be, I'm just gonna glue. I'm just gonna put glue over my pieces. And this is a decor item that I don't plan on giving my children to play with, so I'm gonna put some dots of glue on the edges, but glue, just put some glue out there. You'll have most of it down. Tack your small pieces. Just make sure every piece though does get a little bit of glue, because I just missed a piece. Okay, so I'm just gonna get my glue all over. And like on this one that has a lot of little pieces, I'm gonna get it on some of the edges, but knowing that I got the majority of the flower, I feel good about that. Okay. Now when we come back, I'm gonna hold it like this. That's okay that this one is falling down. It's taped. I'm good with that. Okay, I'm gonna put my backer board or my large cutout down, and I'm gonna hold these pieces and kind of play with it, and then I'm gonna eyeball along my sides to get it where I want it. Okay, the glue that you have is clear, so shift and shimmy, pull up if you need to on your tape to get your pieces where you want them. Now, if you didn't want to do this tape method, you could certainly, you guys, you can certainly do piece by piece. That works too, okay? I just felt that it was easiest for me to tape it, because then I have all my pieces pretty close to where they need to be. And I can pull this off really gently, and I'm applying pressure with my opposite hand that I'm pulling with. Okay, applying pressure to just, you know, the glue is wet, so it's not set yet. So I'm carefully pulling my pieces off. Okay, and I'm just gonna double check that everything is snug the way I want it snug. And then once I double check that, I wanted to shift that leaf a little bit, the stem a little bit. Ooh, I'm really happy with this. How's it look, you guys? Oh, I cannot wait to see yours. I am sure you're doing a fantastic job. You're gonna want this to set for a couple minutes, okay? While we're waiting on that, probably wondering what we're doing with our thankful pieces. We're gonna do that same thing. So remember my painter's tape I just used? I'm gonna just take a chunk of that and do the same sort of idea. I'm gonna put it over the top of my cutout. Okay, but now when I flip over, you're gonna have to be a little bit careful. Okay, so we're gonna peel this part off. And if you're short on painter's tape, peel this off and do this part before you do this part so you can use this chunk. Now here's what you have to be a little bit careful about. When you're doing these, you need to only get paint on the letters. Okay, don't get paint all over like I did before. So just make sure you're putting a little bit of paint on your letters. And I've been using this glue bottle for a few projects. So make sure you're just spreading out that paint, getting it just on the letters, because if it gets on the other board or the outside of the board, what we're holding it together with, kind of clean it up a little bit. It could pull up some of your paint, which I will show you how to fix if that happens, and that's okay. We will fix that, but just get your paint on your letters. Okay, and this is a little bit of a process, but it will work. And all your letters will also be in line, which is awesome. Okay, so almost there. My paint or my glue ran out, so I'm using glue from another bottle to finish up this project. Okay. I'm not sure where it went. All right. Now, when you lay this down on your board, like we talked about at the very beginning of our how-to video today, this matches. Okay, it's the same size. So when I'm putting it down, I'm making sure my edges are all in line. I'm going to apply pressure to my letters where I put my paint, and then I'm going to peel up. Okay? Now, if any letters did not stick, that's okay. We will just glue them back down because you will have most of your letters in their spot. So like my A didn't come out, or it came out with my cutout. So I'm just gonna try to apply a little bit more glue to my A. And because I have my other ones in line, I feel okay that I can put it down where I want it. If you want to lay down your outline again, you certainly can. So I'm gonna drop my A in, and then, oh, my T did stick. It just needed to be pushed a little bit more. Push that down. How cute is this, you guys? So fun. So your word is up here. The word I have is thankful. And love it. And then I will put this back in, and this is how your display will stand. Make sure you share with me on Facebook. We're on Facebook and we're on Instagram. Deck the Halls DIY Studio. We would love to see your pictures and come back to DIY with us again.